off the back of Sir Keir Starmer addressing the nation at 4 o'clock this afternoon, I'm just picking up on some of the key strands that he had to say there. And one of the things that's coming through thick and fast, I'm asking you how you think what he said, what do you think to it? The theme that keeps coming through is he doesn't seem to understand why people are taking to the streets. All well and good talking tough, but if you're not resolving the issue that people have, or the issue is plural because there'll be different ones, you're never going to fix anything. So what we're talking about before the break is this notion that it's become this kind of, this fear now. Who are these people that are coming into this country? What are their intentions? And people are afraid, Juditha.
I think there's every justification to be afraid based on where society has gotten to now. But I would be keen to see numbers about what percentage of migrants commit crimes and the kinds of crimes, because when you look at that proportion, the perception that's being driven, where if we can just clear out all the immigrants and the criminals there, we can focus on our criminals. The percentages is probably not enough for you to say, throw the baby out with the bathwater.
But I would argue that we don't know because that data is not being collected properly. And I would probably wonder, why is that data not being collected in the way that
because it's something that, based on where we are now, it needs to be collected. Because then that's a very weighted argument, because if the numbers are high, then yes, they should all be returned to...
You've got to look at the types of crimes as well. So we've seen riots.
You saw it in Denmark,
Hartlepool.
by the way. They did it in Denmark, didn't they? They put down the migrant, whichever community it was, and the number of crimes, and everybody went mad. And the one person who's not going to carry out that piece of research, which I agree with you, it'd be great research, by the way, is, of course, Starmer. Starmer is going to turn out to be an absolute nightmare in relation to stopping the boats coming in. Our country wants to stop the boats. Now, there is a conflation going on. Yeah. I do get that. But it is part of why the English Defence League and these other organisations have grown to prominence, because they look to ordinary politicians, whether they're Conservative, Lib Dem or Labour, and say, look, guys, this has now been going on, for 6-7 years now. Massive numbers coming to our country, towns cities the size of Durham growing up literally every year, in a world where we can't even, where doctors won't even see you, if you've got the flu or something. So we want that resolved, and then something like this comes along, then false news comes out, fake news does come out. I happen to know something about that, lad, right? Fake news comes out, and suddenly this turns out to be a melting pot of trouble. And I do not believe for one single second that Starmer's this is typical lawyer coming out. I tell you what, let's say something to the nation, try and put everybody at their peace. The idea that police forces do talk to each other.
I do agree with what you said and what Michelle have said, that Keir Starmer needs to sit with his team and address what's making people fearful, because the environment of fear is just fertile ground for things to go in a very negative direction. When you're panicked, you react in ways that you never react when you are feeling rational or feeling safe. And that's what they have to deal with. Like you said, what is making everyone so fearful? And the fact that when you actually look at where fear is pointed, whether it's the EDL or Russia just spreading misinformation, they know that's how it works.
The EDL don't even exist, by the way. It's not really existed for ages, and they're sitting there and talking about prescribing it as some kind of terrorist organisation. I think it's laughable.
That is something that, if you have something like what we've seen with these riots, and if people are chanting who the F is Allah, that is a very clear signal about the sentiment of the people there. Yeah. You have to address it.
Well, hold on, let me address
this. What has cultivated people getting to a point where they feel they need to say that? That's where I agree. Starmer has to address the environment of fear that's happening now, because things like town halls should be happening regularly.
He's not the guy to do it. He has nothing to do it. He is a left-of-centre lawyer, right, who's had a gilded life, right? He doesn't live in these communities, which he's seen change a lot. He doesn't understand how ordinary people feel about this issue. He just thinks it can all be solved with a nice piece of political little speech-making like this, which will warm the hearts of people who live in Hampstead.
I want to just pick up as well this point, because people are afraid, and there's two different types of fear. One is kind of it's almost like a fantasy. It's not based on reality. It's not based on any facts. It's just based on whatever. It's nonsensical fear. Another type of fear is a genuine fear based on facts, based on things that have actually happened, and therefore I would call them legitimate fears. You're just mentioning there that people will make, very unkind, disrespectful, quite disgusting chants about Islam. I don't agree with that. I think that's really quite disrespectful. I mean, people know very well my best friends are Muslim. There's loads of very peaceful Muslims in this country. You're disrespecting their religion and it's not great. However, you do have to be realistic. You mentioned the guy, the Hartlepool terror attack.
Shocking.
As you quite rightly point out, he was saying he was doing his attacks for the people of Gaza. Now, every single week, it feels like we have marches in this country to support Gaza. So then you've got this fear there that people are thinking, well, hang on a second, this fellow, he's just murdered people in Hartlepool. He's done it, he says, because of Gaza. Yesterday, a guy was convicted. It was his second. He had 2 previous terror-related convictions, and he was jailed for 10 years. This is just yesterday, everybody, for posting extremist Islamist content. You know, if you look, a month ago, we came so close to a terror attack in this country, in Leeds, actually, a hospital in Leeds. And there was a guy, he'd got a bomb. He'd sent a text to try and evacuate the hospital. It's a long story and I'm conscious of time, but he was intending to evacuate the hospital, set off the bomb, and then stab the people that remained. That was a month ago that guy was sentenced. You guessed it. He was following an Islamist ideology. So I would suggest and put to you, as my viewers tell me on a daily basis, that fear that people have is based on tangible events that are happening in their society. Tell me your thoughts. Let's continue the conversation in 2.